Okay, so you believe in, then by extension, I would guess, private orphanages,
Dude, I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I'm not even sure. What do
privatization.
you mean, private orphanages?
Well, right now, I mean, I'm sure there are some private orphanages, but I imagine a lot of orphanages are given a lot of support by the government because they are something, kids without parents are kind of, helpless people who need help. But the privates, but without governmental help, it would be entirely privatized, as you said, right?
Uh-huh.
So all orphanages would have to be profitable, otherwise they would have to close their doors,
Uh-huh.
which essentially would come down to probably selling children, which obviously it costs money to adopt, but that's literally what they're doing. That would be a private orphanage. Is that a solution that you would agree with, or do you think that perhaps in the cases of orphanages, the government might be able to help out?
Okay, wait. So I have to think through this because I don't ever
By
think
all
about
means,
I don't ever think about orphanages really. So
it's a good thing to think
kids,
about.
their parents died, and now they're
Mhm.
just kids by themselves. In normal cases, the government comes in and brings them to a government facility,
Yeah,
and
or
then
foster homes, things like that.
and oh, and then some other people, some other families, if they choose to, they can adopt these kids into their
Hmm.
house.
Yeah.
But they don't have to pay to adopt these kids, or they do.
They probably do, but I imagine that it's made. I don't actually know. We could look it up, but I imagine that. Well, I know actually in the case of foster parents, they actually get paid to raise the children. They actually are given money from the government to do that, and the
Foster
organizations that.
just means you raise the kid until a certain age and then you're done. Is that it?
It just means that it's like adoption, but not quite. It's like foster is like the kid needs a home, but it's generally temporary. Yes, it could be permanent, and if you choose to adopt the kid, but the kid is not legally your child, you are just the guardian of them,
Okay.
and you do get paid by the government to do that. So if we
I
took
think
away that, you would have to
uh,
they would literally have to buy the children.
well, I don't know if they'd have to buy the children because there'd be different organizations that set up. I'm sure tons of people would be happy to help out with
Mm,
orphanages. Just regular people that don't want to go through the whole government process of doing it. I'm sure there's tons of people that actually want to work for a company like that.
mhm.
Um,
Do you think that, I mean, okay, so let's keep going into this because this is an interesting topic because I don't think about orphanages a lot either. Okay, so private orphanages, it really would be because again, the orphanage would have to close if it wasn't profitable. So if the donations weren't enough and the money from the adoption agency was not enough, these children would be out on the street. First of all, because it's a private
or
organization.
other orphanages that were profitable would come in. I mean,
Okay,
a
but there's a
GoFundMe,
lot of kids out there.
A
There's a,
Kickstarter, a GoFundMe. I know we're talking specifically in the USA, so we're only
how
worrying about the USA.
often I hear that a lot, the GoFundMe thing. And you know what? You see it on the news. Sometimes it goes viral. How often do you, and you might do this. I don't do this, is my point. How often do you go on GoFundMe just to fund people's disability?
I don't because I have
Yeah.
better things to do with my time.
Yeah. I think a lot of us do. So I
But
think I'd
I
rather
have
rely on
seen
the government to
people.
do it than
I
have
have
to
seen
then
people
go out and
recently.
go out of my
I
way
have
to
seen
do it.
people recently that have had a ton of money on there off of things that I was like, wow, this guy just made $250,000 off of making a
Yeah.
video.
Isn't it? Yeah, isn't it? But I still think, even in those cases, I still think that is utterly ridiculous because just the idea of having to just beg for money is just so degrading. And it's just like, I mean, people have to do it. If you're homeless, if you suffer an injury, suffer a car accident, you have to do it. If the government is not providing assistance, and oftentimes in reality it isn't, especially in America. I mean, in other countries it's different, but in America, yeah. I mean, you see those like sweet stories of the kid that baked cookies for his mom's surgery or something like that, and the school had a fundraiser. But like, why should the kid even have to do that at all? Shouldn't the mom be able to get health care and have her cancer, treated, or her heart, surgery done? Why does the kid have to literally, sell cookies so that his mother can live?
Mm.
It seems heartless, in my opinion.
I mean,
But
it could
it is
be.
how it is.
It isn't the result of free market capitalism, though.
It is. It is the result of free market
It's definitely
capitalism.
not.
Because privatized medical insurance. They can't
I
afford the treatment.
I think as a result, like as we said, that there is no actual free market capitalism country in the world right now, and there never has been really.
But America is a really laissez-faire, free. As far as in the grand scheme of things, America is one of the most neoliberal free market capitalist countries in the world.
Relative to other countries, but not in terms of where it could be.
But as a result,
or even close to where it could be with
the medical sector is privatized. And so that's why kids have to bake cookies and stuff and have fundraisers so that their parents can get surgery, because they can't afford the health bills, because it's privatized, because the hospital has to be profitable in order to even stay open.
Yeah.
Because if it's not profitable, it would close and then no one would have access to it.
Yeah, but I don't think this is a result of the separation of economic and state. It's a result of state making a bunch of policies on the economics, and it's causing these prices to rise up.
But actually, in single payer socialized healthcares, the costs often go down. It becomes cheaper, and it becomes a lot more work.
I'm just talking about in the USA.
Yeah. But you are for as much privatization as possible. Leave it to the private sector, right?
Yes, exactly. Without any government doesn't have the power to do anything in that sector.
Or rather, it shouldn't, is your opinion, correct?
No, not that it shouldn't. It doesn't have the power to do anything other than just prevent people from hurting each other, prevent these unsafe spaces or whatever. It's just nothing like that. That's it.
Well, okay. The reason I said shouldn't rather than doesn't, because it currently does have that power, because the government has a monopoly on violence, and therefore it can kind of do whatever it wants. It can enforce. I mean, people will protest as they are now because they disagree, but the government has access to the police and the military. If they want to enforce a law, especially nowadays with Trump, they will do it. They will bring out the Homeland Security and they will enforce that law, which you and I both agree is unethical. But it's not a they do not have the power. They do not ethically have the responsibility. They should not have the power to do that. But like it or not, they do at the time. That's what I was saying.
Wait, so because Ayn Rand, she talks about this too, about the monopoly of force. They have the monopoly of force.
They do.
And that's a good thing, though, because if you left that up to the private sector, then you're going to get into these different like mafia and other types.
You're absolutely right. That's what happens in Mexico.
Right.
Yeah, that's what happens in Mexico. Yeah.
It's a necessary evil in a sense.
However, we also actually don't have that in the military, though, because we do have private military corporations that the U.S. government and army hires out in the Middle East, and they are often they do a lot worse of a job than the military does. Because they're not as regulated. They're under the thumb. I mean, the government deploys them and tells them what to do, but they take orders from their boss, not from the government. If they refuse, they can just end the contract if they wanted to. If they didn't like it. And there's a lot of, and they don't receive a lot of coverage either, because the government's kind of likes to sweep that under the rug. And they often use paramilitary organizations in cases where they don't want a lot of press on the U.S. military too. They want to keep things secret, so they have a private contract with a private military corporation, and then they all go out and do a mission. And then if it goes wrong, even if it goes right or if it goes horribly wrong, then the government is not strictly responsible. But you would kind of disagree with that, or you would say that Ayn Rand would, because she agrees with the monopoly of force. She just doesn't think that they should do anything besides protect people from coercion, which is an interesting wording, because how does one define coercion under free market capitalism? Is pushing one's competition away and buying all the airtime on ads so that potential customers only know about your products, and even if your competitors are there, they don't get market share because people can't see about them? Would that be considered coercion?
Just buying ads? No, of course not.
But buying all the ads,
it's okay. If you want to buy all the ads, let them buy all the ads.
Okay, so you don't think that that's coercion?
No.
Okay, so
if they're legally doing it and they're not, harming people or hurting people by doing it, they're just buying ad space. Yeah. What if a energy drink company sponsored a school, and so they were in fact hurting kids because they were actually lying to them, telling them that energy was is healthy, when in fact it's not, because there's no government body to stop that. What do you mean energy? The drink is healthy when it's not?
I'm coming up with a potential scenario, a hypothetical. So there's this company, Energy or whatever, right? They have an energy drink, and they want customers, right? So they go out and talk to schools and like places, and they even go to like the FDA, the FDIC, because again, or whatever, the Food and Drug Administration, and they kind of like, I don't know, have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of like that. If the it's got electrolytes, if a company buys, lies to people with advertising, says in the advertising that it is healthy when it's not, would that be considered coercion?
No, I think as long as it's not poisonous, then you can say that it's healthy.
I mean,
healthy
it basically
is a subjective term. As long as it's not causes some cancer or kills you. Then
Okay. So what about cigarettes? Cigarettes cause cancer, and they're legal now.
What about them?
I mean, is that not you said as long as it doesn't cause cancer? Cigarettes cause cancer.
Okay, if it causes something that is going to hurt the person, then that should be something of the legal part that the government.
What is hurt somebody? What about obesity? Obesity is harm to people. Sugar, too much sugar is unhealthy.
I know obesity is a result of an unhealthy lifestyle, though. It's not just something that you go out and purchase.
Well, a lot of obesity happens because unhealthy, like non-nutritious food, like McDonald's, is easier to afford than healthy food, and that is a result of the private, of free market capitalism, is that McDonald's can be cheaper and sell unhealthy cheeseburgers to people for less money than the healthy salads and foods like that. Is that not coercion?
Just selling unhealthy food? No, of course not.
But selling unhealthy food at a price that people can afford and therefore making unhealthy food, because the reason that McDonald's and stuff is unhealthy and cheap is because they put a bunch of preservatives and junk in it that's cheaper than actual meat and healthy nutritious food. So, poor people will have worse diets because that's all they can afford. And that sounds like harm to me anyway. I think nutrition should be a human right. I think you should be able to have access to healthy food and unhealthy food if you want, but you shouldn't only have access to McDonald's if you're and people do have that. There are poor people out there. Well, thankfully, I hope that you and I are not one of those people, but there are people out there who only have access to unhealthy food and cereals and stuff because it's cheap, but it's not nutritious, and it makes them unhealthy, and it actually makes them worse productive workers because they're unhealthy.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with not anything wrong with it. I mean, each person has to choose their own lifestyle and what they do.
Okay, but okay. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm sorry. I really am. Did you actually have more to say? I apologize.
No, okay. No, go ahead.
Okay. What is the point of all these choices of cereals that these kids can't afford? What is the point of that? Like, sure, you can buy all kinds of cereal, you can buy all kinds of popcorn, all kinds of cheeseburgers, but you can't afford the turkey that's good for you. You can't afford the salad. You have Burger King, Wendy's, McDonald's, but no one has access to, like, I don't know, something healthy to eat. Or they do, but it's expensive. Subway is not super healthy, but they're generally more expensive.
And what is the reason why? What are the reasons why it's more expensive, both in the inner city and then both in like the suburbs and other places? Why?
Because healthy food is more expensive and harder to procure than unhealthy junk food.
But why?
Because sugar is easy to make, it tastes good, and you can put it in anything. Preservatives are cheap for whatever reason. I don't know because instead of slaughtering a cow, you can make synthetic meat with like 10% beef and just put the rest of the synthetic in because it's cheaper. I don't know. The free market figured it out. For some reason, unhealthy food is cheaper.
I don't think we disagree about the harmful effects that these things happen, but I don't think this is the result of an actual true free market where we have the government preventing these dangerous things from happening. I think
the government certainly isn't preventing it now.
I know this is the outcome. This isn't the actual cause, though. These are the symptoms that you're getting at. We just apparently you and me have different solutions to go about fixing.
Yes, we do.
But I think you're attributing a lot of it towards just free market capitalism when there's a lot of policies, and this is being exposed now too, which I'm
Well, okay. Let me. Before you finish, I am not attributing it strictly to free market capitalism. Free market capitalism is a problem. I am restricting it. I am blaming capitalism in general. Any form of capitalism, regulated or unregulated, will have these problems, and fundamentally in it. And I find those problems to be unethical and should be solved.
okay.
Because the point is profit. The point is not wealth, is not social well-being. The goal of capitalism is profit. If it's cheaper to sell unhealthy junk food, then you're going to sell unhealthy junk food. Whereas if we forced people to make healthy food and forced innovation into healthy food industries, then we would do that as long as profit wasn't the goal. Because you would have to make an investment initially and it wouldn't be profitable for a while. Eventually it might be. But for now, it's much cheaper to just put sawdust in your fucking hamburgers and then sell them to people, you know?
Right, but that would be outlawed in free market capitalism as well.
How so?
Doing these dangerous things to food. This is the
Okay,
purpose of
but
government,
right now,
is to protect
but-
people from
okay.
hurting each other, prevent these companies from hurting people.
Yeah, but as you say, we are not under free market capitalism now, and it happens.
Exactly, we're not under it.
Yeah, so it would only get worse if we were. Because there'd be less regulations.
I don't think that makes sense to go from here to there. We don't have it. We've never had it.
You're right. We've never strictly had it, but we've had close. But here's the thing: the whole meatpacking industry. I don't know if you've heard about this. There was a book, I forget what it's called, but that's why we have labels of ingredients on our cans now, because regulation came in and said you had to do that because people were putting things like sawdust and unhealthy, like completely disgusting putrid meat in their food,
right.
And it was poisoning the population.
Right. That is the role of government.
Yes.
To prevent that from happening.
But that was a result of free market capitalism.
No, not from my definition. From your definition, you can continue to say that.
Okay. No. That was a result of capitalism.
No.
Yes.
It's a result of not having the right government regulations and laws. It's not capitalism.
Yeah. But the reason you need those regulations and laws is because capitalism, unrestrained, will find the cheapest way of making profit, which in that case could be poisoning people.
Right. As that's the purpose of government, is to prevent from these unethical and wrong things that cause harm, these poison, the coercion, this whole thing. That is the function of the first thing I said, to prevent from someone coming and hurting someone else. That is a form of hurting someone else. It's put in place to prevent these things. That's the structure, and then everything else comes out of that. You can't break this structure, though. All the things that you're saying are breaking this original structure, and that's why I have a problem with it, because it's not the direct result of my definition of laissez-faire.
So how would your system solve public nutrition?
Almost everything gets solved when you get out of the way of it, when you have government officials get out of the way of it. The actual natural order of life, the cycle of life in nature. Even I think Milton Friedman used this example when he took someone who's like, come on, I'm going to illustrate this to you. They went to like a skate park, or not a skate park, ice rink in New York City. And they noticed how like, oh, look, the slower speed people, they go to the inside like this. The faster ones, they go to the outside like this. And they're like, see, that would be the free market. This is how it works. And like, now we're going to have an official come in, and this will be the government stepping in and regulating. And the government guy, he starts pointing the person there, and just complete chaos ensues. People start hitting each other. It doesn't work anymore. The natural order, the laws of nature basically have been transgressed in this case. The same thing happens when you extrapolate that example to these different situations. The same thing always happens when the government steps in. It does a worse job than it by itself.
What if someone who is slow but doesn't want to admit that they're slow moves to the outside, and they actually end up slowing down the whole system because people don't want to hit them, and actually some people might even run into them, but they decide, no, there's no one forcing me to go. We naturally group out of that, but you know what? No, I don't want you to tell me how fast I am. I am as fast as I want to go, so I'm going to move out of the slow lane and move into the fast lane because, again, there's no lanes at all because there's no government deciding the lanes.
So that person would probably get hit.
Yeah, and they would also hit other people too. People would run into them.
So they'd be willingly causing harm to themselves
and others.
Right. So they'd be causing harm to themselves.
But there would be no government to step in.
But they'd also be causing harm to other people if they're doing that. So how
would you solve that without the government?
That would be the purpose of government. It is one of those three things.
So what would the government
hurting other people?
What would the government do in that case?
If this person's hurting other people by their actions,
Should they be moved into the slow lane? Should the government
Or
then
maybe they
establish?
shouldn't be on there at all if they can't even actually stay the course.
Okay, so the government would come in and remove them from
That
harming
doesn't
people.
mean that other people wouldn't speak to this person and be like, "Hey,
You're right.
this isn't. You shouldn't be skating here because you're hurting people now." But
Yeah,
then
but
the
fuck
government
you.
would
I
step
can
in.
skate where I want. God damn it.
Sure.
Yeah. So I would say the government would just come in and establish a slow lane and a fast lane and say, look, I'm sorry, I don't care that you want to be fast. You have to go in the slow lane until you can actually go fast.
Right. That's one solution. I don't
But then
agree
they
with
can
the
still
solution.
ice. That's fair. That's fine. I'm trying to think of the next topic. I think we've kind of exhausted that, unless you have any more questions or anything. Oh wait,
No,
you know what? Let me finally say. So okay, so let's go back to the food example. What do you think causes unhealthy food?
What do I think causes unhealthy food? Government.
Okay, you think it's the government. All right. And in fact, you're not entirely wrong, because they actually do subsidize the meat industry and the sugar industry, which we both agree is wrong. However, it seems that, okay, so you're saying that without the government, McDonald's would suddenly have healthy food?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying that more options
Would healthy
would be
food become
available.
cheaper?
Yes, more cheaper options would become available because the government finally moves out of the way and the private sector can come in and actually fulfill these things that obviously the government doesn't care to or can't do.
Who's going to fill the healthy food market if all the money is in the unhealthy food? Because people don't, I mean, salads are good. We should have access to salads, but I don't want to eat a salad all the time. You know, I'm going to spend my money on unhealthy food if I have the opportunity.
Right, and that's your right as an individual.
Should the government not save us from ourselves and make sure that healthy food is at least an option?
They should. Okay, so they should. The government shouldn't do anything. Again, I don't think I'm changing my stance on any of these points.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm just clarifying. That's all I'm asking. Yeah. And okay, so you don't think that unhealthy food and and difficult access to healthy food would not fall under the definition of causing harm?
As long as it's not something that causes some kind of immediate death to you, some kind of like cancer, some kind of
well, cancer is not an immediate death.
Right. So
cancer is actually a slow death.
I know if it's proven, which is what you need to have evidence.
Okay.
If it's proven that it does, then that would be when the government steps in and has to shut whatever that is that you're doing down.
Okay, so would you say that the government should probably outlaw cigarettes then? Because they do cause cancer.
No. I'm actually open to whatever you want to do with your body. You go and do it. I can't actually stop you as long as you're not hurting someone else. You should be able to smoke cigarettes. You should be able to do meth. You should be able to do whatever you want. You should be able to commit suicide if you want.
Agreed. I actually, you and I agree with that a lot. We agree a lot on that. However, I think that causing harm and coercion is a little bit still too fuzzy, because I could see a perfectly logical argument that says that junk food and putting sawdust in your hamburgers is a poison and causing harm. And if you use cancer as a specific example, which you have, cigarettes should then be outlawed if the government is specifically designed to prevent people from causing cancer to the population.
No, as long as it's a warning, like, hey, if you smoke this, you can get cancer. If you eat this, you could die.
Right. Okay, so what if they slap a warning on the cheeseburger that says, okay, this could kill you, it's not healthy, but you're like, okay, but I can't afford healthy food anyway. So the label doesn't really change anything.
Well, the label at least gives awareness. I don't think it should say it should kill you. Maybe it will say, unless it actually does kill you, but it should say, hey, this could cause obesity, which in turn could cause you to die.
But what good does that do to those who can't afford the healthy food anyway?
Well, and that's what I'm saying. This is like a hypothetical. This is a real scenario, but this isn't where it would be if we were to roll back the actual role of government. More options would be available when we just leave it up to the private sector. That's kind of the thing I'm getting at. Like,
but how is that what I'm asking?
What do you mean?
So like you asked me about A to Z. What would be your steps, and how would that create a more sustainable and prosperous population?
I don't know. I haven't really thought through all of it, and it's going from Z to A, because we don't have the free market again, and the thing you get back to, how you get back to a free market is taking away the different regulations and restrictions and taxes and all that other stuff.
What specific regulations would you like to see removed? Do you have any in mind?
Well, everything that isn't one of the three things that I mentioned.
Okay, but again,
School, that's another one.
you would get rid of that, or you would
Leave it up to the private sector.
okay, okay, so you don't think there should be at all any public school whatsoever?
I don't know. In this scenario, maybe like if there was a cheaper public school scenario that other people couldn't afford the different private sectors, because it would have to happen in time. It would be like, hey, we have a private sector now, so more schools, it would start to open up, and as the supply of them got more, the demand would go down, or the price would go down. I mean, and that's what I'm saying.
Well,
It's like a process to get there. But government schools, a monopoly on government schools, on education, is a terrible idea. To just have the government be the final say of everything that you learn and do.
I
It's
agree.
terrible.
I think, yeah, I think I actually have videos on what I would do about school. I can, we disagree, so to speak, to put it lightly. I could say really quickly, I think that school would be non-compulsory, but I think that schools would be well-funded. I think that schools should be free and well-funded. But I do think that school should be compulsory until about 12, and then you could kind of choose whether or not you wanted to go to school. I think that would provide more freedom than just privatizing schools and making it only up to someone who has money. Whereas a person who has no money could still go to school anytime they wanted to under my system.
Well, I don't think that doesn't mean that, because part of taxes that you pay goes towards public school. If you're not paying that portion of public school taxes anymore, you have money to spend for the school of your choice, and not just what's given to you because you live in this certain area and you have no other choice because of that.
Okay, that's true. But if we stopped doing that, I think that school attendance would definitely go down if all schools were paid. Because people, even if they were receiving the taxes that they were paying in schools back, the schools aren't guaranteed to be those prices, because generally socialization actually brings prices down better than free market capitalism does. But even so, they still would probably spend that money on food and things like that. I don't know, or entertainment. I mean, they might, or send their kid to the mines. I mean, why even send them to school at all at that point? Just get more money for the house, for the family. Put them off to work.
Right. Well, I just don't trust, and I guess we have similar ideas but very different. But I don't trust the government to be able to.
We are both anarchists almost.
Yeah, I don't trust the government to do any of these things outside of the three things that I outlined.
Okay,
because
but
they don't have an incentive to actually do these in a good way.
I agree, but I just think that we have different definitions of those things. For instance, harm and coercion is the main one. I think protecting the country from a foreign invader, we are pretty clear on. And judiciary things we might have disagreements on, but I don't know where to start with that. But I think we do agree that while the government should prevent harm and coercion, I think we have different definitions of harm and coercion. Would you agree?
Probably.
Yeah, because I would say that putting sawdust in cheeseburgers and cigarettes is causing harm. I wouldn't necessarily make cigarettes outlawed, but I would definitely change things. I would definitely change nutritional standards. That I would 100% do.
So wait, what about for the cigarettes? You would outlaw cigarettes? Is that what you're saying?
No, I would legalize all drugs. But however, I do think that they should be regulated.
What do you mean?
I don't think that you should be able. I think if you have cigarettes and they're tobacco cigarettes, you should have to put tobacco in them. Like, most people do that, but like the example with the sawdust burgers, if you say you have a beef patty, it better be made of beef, not 10% beef and 90% other shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right. You should be still. You should have the. I think you should have the. By law, you should have to put what's actually in it, of course. And then if you're lying, that'd be a part where the government steps in and like, hey, this is causing harm. And they have
we do agree on that.
Right. They have evidence, and then you have to deal with the consequences with the judiciary system. So
I also think that even if I think that the solution isn't just if you're putting sawdust in the burgers, say that you're putting sawdust in the burgers. I think that A, it should be illegal to do that, and B, you should. I mean, I'm just using that as an example. I don't think people really put sawdust in their beef, but you know what I mean. If you know, or I mean, it could even be soy, and if they're calling it beef, you're right. But I don't think that that people should have only access to unhealthy food, regardless of if it's labeled or not. I think everyone should have access to all levels of nutrition, from completely junk food to the health to like raw kale. You know, the full spectrum should be available to everybody.
I agree.
Okay, but under your system, they would have to buy it, and under my system, it would be made sure, you know, whether they could afford it or not, they would be guaranteed food.
Okay, wait. So where does the money come from then?
Well, obviously, because I mean, most of the money, in going back to enabling, you know, enacting my plans, most of the money would come out of the military. One of the three tenets of government is a military, a defensive military, not necessarily offensive military, but a defensive military, which I believe could be greatly scaled back. I mean, right now, we have jets being built in the desert in the Midwest that aren't being used because the military has a contract with companies that build jets. So they just build these jets because of military contracts that are never even used. So I think that is a total waste of money. However, under capitalism, they keep that there because if the contract ended, those people would be out of the job, and they don't necessarily, and they have the contract to keep those people working. Under my system, those people would be out of the job, but they would still have food, shelter, education, healthcare, and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we've covered economics pretty good. Do you have any interesting philosophical ideas you'd like to discuss, unrelated directly to economics?
Other than objectivism is the only moral philosophy and capitalism is the only moral government philosophy.
Well, I mean, I guess we disagree. We will have to agree to disagree on that. As an anarchist, I think that capitalism is a unjustifiable hierarchy, and people and people should, and I believe as much freedom as possible. I believe in democracy, personal choice, personal freedom, and equality of opportunity. I am a misconception is that a lot of leftists believe in equality of outcome. You may have heard that, which is not true. No, I believe in equality of opportunity. I think instead of everyone should end at the same finish line, I think everybody should have the same starting line. So you can finish anywhere you want, or anywhere the meritocracy places you, based on your own success and personal drive. I think everybody should have the same opportunity to education, the same opportunity to the same basic opportunity to housing, education, food, nutrition, clothing, and a little bit of, you know, entertainment. But the rest is up to you because, you know, it's up to you. But I also think that there should be a lot more opportunity.
Which is your ideal country in the world right now?
Right now, the most ideal country in the world right now, that is very few. Probably Rojava or Sharon, Mexico, which I'm not sure you've probably not heard of because they're very small anarchist communes that Rojava in the Middle East. Sharon is actually interesting in Mexico because they actually fought off the cartels. The cartels were very heavy in their like environment, and they actually banded together and fucking fought them off. They got guns, they fucking killed them, and now they are an anarchist society. And they have sortition methods for police. You know, people take turns. You know, and a lot of things are voted.
Can you move there? They let you in?
Probably, yeah. But I do think that right now my actually that's not a bad idea. My plans are to move in with my girlfriend into a mobile home and an RV and
you
get
should
going.
Go to Mexico, dude.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Get an RV with my girlfriend and I, and we actually are planning on going to South America.